Okay, so here's what we're going to be doing for the rest of the day or the rest of the morning. We've had our homework discussion. Now we're going to move on to module 7, the tools to regulate your emotions, and modules 9 and 10, which are business practices. Now you'll notice that I skipped a chunk of modules to go from module, uh, I think I was what we were, module 4. I think I skipped module 5 and 6. So I'm going to recommend that you go through those on your own. There's a lot that you can learn just by going through your the stuff that we didn't go over. Uh, Use that as sort of a resource. And there are some activities, I believe, in those sections that might benefit you. And then we're skipping module 8 as well. And there's also a module 11. So I'm going to recommend that you go through those on your own. And then if we have time today, at the end, I'm going to walk you through sort of the last thing that I'm giving you to work on as sort of a project uh, to apply what we've learned for your own benefit, your own personal and professional benefit. So first of all, we're going to talk about tools to regulate our emotions. Um, we've been talking about things like empathy, uh, standing in another person's shoes, looking at a situation through their perspective, and then managing yourself and having strong self-awareness skills. We've been understanding how those can help you regulate your emotions. So we're going to start applying that here. Um, one of the biggest and most useful skills that we can have in emotional intelligence is learning to see the other side, learning to see things through another person's perspective. And so um, by show of hands in the chat, how many of you have ever heard of a 360 assessment? Alan has, Alan has not, Yanni has not. Okay. Alan, tell everybody what a 360 assessment is.
It gives you the opportunity, Sandy, to evaluate your team members, your coworkers, and
Yeah.
sometimes your manager. And it can be an effective tool. It has its downfalls,
Mm-hmm.
but by and large, it gives you the opportunity to assess the team members and your coworkers and those who are your internal coworkers
Mm-hmm.
and or your internal customers and also your external customers.
Yeah, to be more specific, it's an opportunity for everybody else to give you feedback on you.
Right, exactly right.
So this is a 360 assessment means that I'm going to go out and ask everybody who I work with to uh, usually it's something that's online and they give you a link and you go to this and it's a tool. There's lots of different companies that produce this tool and you answer a series of questions. Like if Alan said, I wanted a 360 assessment, he would get this tool and he would send out the link and then he would ask everybody to complete a questionnaire based on asking questions about Alan. And they're generally questions about Alan's strengths and then Alan's weaknesses. And you get a lot of good feedback from your coworkers about how they perceive you. So this is something that a lot of people are kind of afraid to do, that nervous about doing. But some companies do 360 assessments as a matter of course once you get to a certain level. Like in my organization, a lot of people would get 360 start getting 360 assessments when they became GS 14s. And uh, it's a very valuable tool, but you have to be able to take constructive criticism. You have to be able to look at yourself honestly through the eyes of others. And you also get to see the impact of what you intend versus how it's received. What you intend versus how others receive. So you could say, I'm doing the things that I do for this reason. And others could say, well, he's doing these things, and this is how I perceive what he's doing and why he's doing them. And there could be a real disconnect there. So the 360 assessment highlights things where you now can have better self-awareness. Hey, my intent is this, and they're perceiving it as something totally different. So now I have to fix that. I have to take steps to fix that. And a good first step, I believe, is to compare one another's DISC Plus results. That's a really good way to see one another's strengths and blind spots. And once you understand people at that level, you can start to see things through their eyes a little better. You can say the reason that he or she is seeing things this way is because they're a high D, high C, and I am more high I, high S. So that's why we tend to see things differently. And now I can start to see why they're looking at it from their perspective versus my perspective. I know there are some of you who have had this DISC Plus for a while now. Have you ever compared results with somebody? Have you ever taken your results and said, hey, Joe, this is Alan. I know we've both taken this and I want to compare our results. Oh, you ought to do that. It is a great way of um, finding out how you can make connections, seeing the things that you have in common, and then working to bridge. And this is, again, I will offer this up. Um, Two things. I'm offering up, take time to go over your assessment with you one-on-one, and also for you to offer this to your coworkers, for them to take it and for you to compare one another's DISC results. So applying management and self-awareness to this, um, you're sort of striking a balance between arrogance and awareness. Um, you understand who you are, and through that, you can become more consistent and more accountable. And when you are able to see things through others' eyes, you now can uh, develop skills to give in without giving up. You learn about the art of compromise. You learn how to accept others' ideas, but you still keep your beliefs and your values. And you learn how to find a balance between the two. So we're going to work a little bit on compromise, learning how to compromise. And this is, again, this is something that we would normally do in a group, in little group exercises, but we're going to do this all together. So this first one, this first scenario, John wants to take the team out for a steak lunch while his co-manager, Amy, wants to take the team out for a seafood lunch. How can they compromise?
Go out for surf and turf.
Yeah. I was going to say the same
That
thing.
was my first thought was there are plenty of restaurants that'll serve you both.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have a different perspective on that?
Going out for lunch, not just one time, but go twice.
I'd be all for that.
Yeah.
John, you can take me out for steak lunch today, and Amy, you can take me out for steak lunch or seafood lunch tomorrow. I'd be up
Wanda,
for
I like.
that. And then we can find a third person and they can take us to get pizza on Wednesday. So uh,
Hi,
so
Ken.
this the second one here. Mike wants to introduce an internet-based training to the team, but Peter believes this will not effectively present the material and therefore suggests they provide a face-to-face classroom training. How can they compromise?
Develop a program that uh, has part face-to-face and part virtual.
Okay, that's a good solution. Actually, this is I just got recertified in a personality assessment that I hadn't been using for a while, but I have to use for a client here next month. And they have gone to that approach because COVID has forced them to develop more internet-based training. So what they did, their approach was that there were certain things that were in the training, face-to-face training, that were very repetitive. In other words, it's like learning the background, learning maybe the research and the science, and then just an overall description of the different dimensions of the personality profile. And they did an e-learning module that goes over all of that. And so now, before you even go to the live face-to-face training, you have to go through this online e-learning module. And it saves about 2 hours in the live. So it's now a combination of the two. In order to develop this, you have to make the determination what part of the material is more suited to the online and what is more suited to classroom. So with us, our activities, the things that we do together, I would want to do that. The stuff that we're doing right now, I would want to do that in the classroom. But there are certain things that I would be perfectly willing to put in an e-learning format. This third one, Elizabeth believes the quality team at the New York site should perform quality reviews for only the work of the people at New York site. However, Patty says the quality team at the New York site should conduct quality checks for the representatives of New York, Michigan, and Florida. How can they compromise? How can they compromise?
I think
Maybe
they should ask themselves why does one person only think that. I think they need to talk about it and figure out why does one person think only the New York site and why Patty thinks that they should be doing 3 different sites.
Mhm.
Where is where's the disconnect and why they're not closer together and aligned, and maybe come up with a compromise that way.
Mhm. Well, there could be all kinds of reasons, right? Why Patty feels like that they want to do quality checks for more than one site. Maybe the quality team in New York is the best at quality reviews, and maybe they've got more staff, and maybe they have more expertise. So there could be all kinds of different reasons. So what would be a compromise that you could suggest as an alternative?
well, could you split the team? Um, you could split the team since it's such a good team. All of them should be able to do the same thing and
Hmm.
go to each site.
Okay. Yeah, you could reallocate slots. You could reallocate positions. Are there any other solutions? Any other alternatives that you could consider?
You could also, it depends on when you're doing your quality, you're performing your quality reviews. You could do them at different times. Say 1 month you do New York, 1 month you do Michigan, 1 month you do Florida. I mean that team, if they need the
Mhm.
whole team.
Assuming that there's a that there are quality control personnel at New York, Michigan, and Florida, how could you develop sort of a hybrid approach?
Have that team train those other teams.
Yeah, you could have the New York team sort of be the quality control center of expertise for the others, and they could provide training, they could provide support, they could provide guidance, they can even provide some review. Okay, so these are just some areas, some techniques that you can apply for compromise. So we're going to now move into business practices. Um, there are two modules for business practices, Module 9 and Module 10. And I want to emphasize that if anything that one thing that I do want you to take away from this training is that the importance of emotional intelligence to the overall success of an organization. So if you have a higher level of emotional intelligence in your organization, if you have a high level of communication skills in your organization, you will be a more successful and effective organization. And to get that, individual employees in your organization need to learn and apply the emotional intelligence skills. So that's why it's so important. It's the responsibility of everyone in the organization to understand their emotions and learn how to manage them in the workplace. It's everyone's responsibility to be a better listener. Listening is one of the things that we learned in the communication skills module. It's everyone's responsibility to control and manage their emotions. And through this, the goal should be to aim for a positive outcome to every situation, to every interaction. But this first box here is the thing that I really want to emphasize. The degree to which it is everyone's responsibility. Everybody has a role in the success of the organization. So everybody has a role in understanding and managing their own emotions and the emotions of the people they work with. So there's a social and a personal component to each one of the emotional intelligence dimensions that we've been working with, okay? And a social component is maybe something that's more externally focused. The personal component is something that's more internally focused. So a social component that's externally focused is empathy, right? Understanding the emotions of others, that's externally focused. But hand in hand with that goes an internal component, which is self-awareness, which is understanding your own emotions. An externally focused uh, uh, attribute would be intuition, being able to intuitively understand the emotions of others. Some people will call this trusting your gut. You know, what is your gut telling you about the situation? What is your gut telling you about your interaction? And then an internal component would be self-regulation, regulating and managing yourself. An external component of emotional intelligence would be political acumen. So understanding how emotional intelligence helps you be a better leader, helps you communicate better. And then an internal aspect of that, motivation. What is it that motivates me? How can I take what I understand about my values and motivation to have better political acumen? So here's another skill that's important to have in the workplace related to managing yourself and managing your relationships. And that's the ability to disagree constructively. So to disagree constructively means to do so in a positive, productive manner. So the purpose is not to disagree for the sake of disagreeing or getting your point across. And it's also not to be used to negatively or destructively interpret another person's thoughts or perspectives. So you're again trying to keep things positive and achieve a positive outcome, but there are times that you need to be able to disagree. When I'm working with a team, for instance, I find that unless the team really trusts one another, it's hard to have discussions where you're disagreeing because people will tend to take those discussions more personally if they don't trust one another. If you have a high level of trust, you can have constructive disagreement and you can work things out, and you can if you have an idea and somebody else has an idea, if the leader selects the other person's idea, as long as you're heard, you learn to not take that personally. But constructive, I'll call this constructive conflict. Constructive conflict is extremely important for the success of a team. So the ability to have that constructive conflict and to disagree constructively becomes extremely important because it is only through this level of constructive conflict that good decisions get made. So one way to disagree constructively is to first confirm their idea. In other words, let's say that somebody has an idea and it's based on, okay, we want to fix this situation or we want to achieve this result. And this is how I think we should do it. So you confirm their idea by saying, yes, the result that you're trying to achieve is something that I can support. The problem that you're trying to fix definitely needs to be fixed. And your idea is a really effective way of achieving that. And then you could say, my uh, my idea for achieving the same results is this. So you're confirming, you know, the value of what they're trying to accomplish, but then presenting your own perspective on how it should be done. And this is a way of getting them on your side and getting them to maybe think of the problem and their approach in a way that maybe they hadn't thought about it before. So we've got some scenarios here that I want to give you an opportunity, and I might pick on you individually here. Do I want to do that? Let's see how it goes. I'm going to pick on Ellen first. Ellen, this first one, I'm going to take the role of the person who has the idea or the perspective, and you're going to take the role of the person who disagrees and has their own idea. So confirm their idea and then present your own. to this scenario. So, Ellen, I feel that you don't seem comfortable with the position of authority that we put you in. So I think the solution to that is to demote you to a lesser position with lesser authority and lesser responsibility. So how can you first confirm the idea and then offer your own in a way that lets you highlight your ability to use your authority to make sure tasks were completed in a positive manner?
I can see why you would feel that I cannot continue to be in this position of authority because of what has happened with our team. I just wanted to let you know that there were things that were put on our plate without a big enough timetable in order for us to execute the problem that you wanted with that time frame.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you should be able to give me another opportunity to be able to show what I can do with this team.
And what do you need from me to make sure that you're going to be successful?
If you're going to add something to my plate, I might need a little bit more time to incorporate it into the team.
Okay. Do you need any more resources?
No, we have enough resources.
Okay. Do you need any coaching? Do you need me to help you develop some skills?
I would like to have your opinion on, I would like to have your ideas on how I would have executed this within the time frame that you gave.
Okay. Okay, that was good because you acknowledged the situation, the reality of the situation. You acknowledged why, and you legitimized why he might feel the way he feels, but then you countered, and you did it in such a way that maybe now this person is thinking of things differently. Maybe they didn't realize that you were under a time crunch. Maybe they didn't realize that the things they had assigned you were maybe under an unreasonable time frame. So that's good. Joe,
Yes, sir.
you created this training manual and you wrote a section that talks about the pros and cons in working in a particular position because you talked to the employees that were in that role. But I really don't think it's appropriate. I think you should remove that because you might be creating dissent and giving the wrong impression of that position. So people maybe who are thinking about moving into that position might not.
Well, I see where you're coming from, regarding the training manual that we put together. And I I understand where you feel that maybe uh, addressing, the input that I got from employees currently in the role might be inappropriate. But to tell you the truth, I feel that that is really beneficial because it's giving everyone that could be in those positions the benefit of the experience and insights that people who have done that work, uh, uh, that they can provide about, some do's and some don'ts, some ideas. And I think that that's, uh, although there's positive, although there's possibilities that some negativism could come out of that. I feel it's mostly appropriate, and I feel that the benefits would definitely outweigh any negatives, and really would be beneficial to everyone involved and to the whole organization.
So do you think it might be a good thing for people to read the cons and then say, hey, I don't want to be in this position. This position isn't for me.
Well, I think before someone takes a position, they should do that. They should look at the pros and the cons, and if they themselves feel that the negatives outweigh the benefits of them moving into that position, then that's their decision. I think we're providing them all sides of the story.
Very good. I think you made your case extremely well there.
Thank you.
And I'm not offended. I'm not offended by your position because you validated mine. Okay, so now Matt here. Matt, I've just put out a new policy that instead of taking a written message from a client who's calling for one of our staff who's not at his or her desk, we have to forward our client's calls to that person's voicemail so they can leave a voice message. So we're going from a written message to a voice message.
Um, so yeah, so I mean, let's see here.
So your position here is that this new policy is not the best way to handle the situation because it's possible that the technology won't work the way that that we want it to. That it won't. The machine might not record the voice message.
Well, if the machine can't record the voice message, then there has to be another way that we can take down the number and another way that we can go ahead and get down the information so then we can pass that forward that on to the appropriate person.
So, okay, so that's how you feel because you disagree. So what's the first thing that you say to me about this policy?
What are some alternatives that we can use that would be best for the company and making sure that the client that the call gets to the appropriate person. So what kind of policy can we put on play or put in place?
Is there some has Matt skipped a step here?
Yeah, you didn't restate the issue there.
He didn't affirm your position.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he didn't acknowledge that the idea presented was a valid idea and that it would achieve a goal that is valuable. So the first thing that you do is you acknowledge, okay, I understand that we've been taking these written messages and they're not always getting to the right person. And that, maybe using the voice message would be more effective. And then you go into the alternatives. And then you say, I don't believe that it's the best alternative because the machine might not record the message. So here are some things that we could do alternatively. So what are some of the things that you might want to look at alternatively? Matt, what are some things you might want to do alternatively?
What was a better system? Let's go ahead and let's talk about it and let's discuss a better way so this can work for everybody.
Yeah, maybe this machine, maybe this this voicemail system of ours is not reliable enough. Maybe we need a new voicemail system. Maybe we need something that'll produce more reliable results so that we can get away from this paper method. Okay, great. Who am I going to pick on now? I'm going to pick on Yanni. Yanni,
I figured, yes.
um, I am your supervisor, and I want everyone to come in on Saturday and work 8 hours in order to finish a project. And your position is that you disagree that this is the most sensible use of time, and you suggest that everybody work for an hour to an hour and a half additionally each day of the week until the project is completed. So what do you do first? Yanni, I want you and the team to come in on this coming Saturday. It's Monday right now, and I want you to come in on Saturday to finish this project because it has to be done by Monday.
Okay, I recognize that perhaps we are behind on completing the project. However, this may not give enough time for our employees to set up proper daycare.
Yeah.
Um, Perhaps we can ask the employees if they can arrange to stay a little bit extra throughout the week um, to catch up.
So you're saying that if we bring them in on Saturday, that they might have to arrange for daycare and things that that might not be available.
Yes, being that they do already have daycare set up throughout the week, and in some places they can pick up the children a little later, even up to 6 p.m. Perhaps we can work that out and we're not inconveniencing them or perhaps putting a burden on them.
Okay, I think that was a great approach. So you also might want to ask to take your supervisor out to steak or seafood lunch.
Funny.
Sure. We can incorporate that in the for those who are staying after, we can provide dinner.
Yeah.
This is Alan. I think it's also a quality of work life issue too, because typically people, if they work extra during the work day, they can spend time with their families on Saturday, or they can do family oriented things on Saturday, ball games, things like that. So it can be a quality of work life issue as well.
Right. I think Yanni set me straight. He made me realize that Saturday is not a good day to work.
Yeah.
Go out for so right, Yanni?
Yes.
He set me straight. Okay. So now we're going to move. We're going through this pretty quickly, and so we're probably going to get out early today, which is good. This is the second business practices module. And this is focusing primarily on optimism versus pessimism. So optimism and pessimism are not only two different schools of thought, they're actually two extremes along sort of a continuum. And neither of these extremes is considered better than the other. So being able to strike a balance between optimism and pessimism is a fundamental part of best business practices. There are some people who will approach things with a consistently optimistic perspective. There are people who will approach things with a consistently pessimistic perspective. There are pros and cons to each, but coming up with a balance is what we should be trying to achieve. So, some of the benefits of optimism. If you're able to sort of put a positive spin on a situation and come up with the positives of a situation, you can be more productive. It's a lot better for your health and well-being. It'll help you to sort of look past the current problem and keep focused on the destination. And it will also help you maybe come up with resolutions to the current problem. So optimism as a reaction to a situation definitely has some very strong benefits. Pessimism, on the other hand, you might think of the negatives associated with pessimism. It can be very detrimental. It can lower morale, and it can contribute to higher stress. But there are some benefits to pessimism, or the pessimistic approach, I should say, in that a lot of times the pessimistic approach will help you point out things, flaws in your approach. It'll help you get a certain perspective on the problem at hand. And what we are kind of striving towards is being able to balance our optimism and pessimism to respond to realism. What is the real situation here? What does the optimistic approach tell us about it? What does the pessimistic approach tell us about the real situation? And how can we use that insight to create a better, more effective path forward? So to balance between optimism and pessimism is to acknowledge that when you take either of the extremist positions, it can get in the way of you not seeing reality. And it can create a sense of false hope. So tell me, what do you think would be some advantages, or what can you take away from a pessimistic view on a situation? What are some advantages to that? What can you gain from a pessimistic view on a situation? Can you think of any benefit to a pessimistic view of a situation?
It would, I think if you had a pessimistic view, it's going to offset, like if somebody has a view that may be looking at a situation as being too rosy, so having the pessimistic view in a situation could help to bring the focus back to where it lies somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm. So do any of you tend to, based on, how well you know yourself, do any of you tend to approach things more pessimistically than optimistically?
I'm an optimist,
Mm-hmm.
and so I just try to show the benefit. But then I appreciate the devil's advocate, which I call it, the pessimistic person that, that brings in their viewpoint, because maybe because I'm optimistic, I don't see that side. So it helps bring a balance, and it helps the team to work together more efficiently when you're looking at it from all sides.
So how often do any of you find yourself hearing somebody else's position or idea and saying, this is never going to work? This is never going to work, and I can tell you exactly why.
I hear it a lot.
Yeah?
I hear it more than I would like to, but I I have to have my facts right,
Mm-hmm.
straight. And so if I know my stand on something and I'm an optimistic person, so when that person comes to tell me, oh, this is not going to work, and then I can show them through history of trying it a different way that that didn't work. So,
Do you ever hear things from the pessimist who says, this is never going to work, and they tell you why it's never going to work? Do you ever hear things in that say, hey, you're right, we can't do this because of what you pointed out here, so now we've got to accommodate what you said. Now we got to fix this idea, we got to improve this idea to take into account a lot of the things that you just said.
so I'll just say, let's look at your side and let's sit down and just reason together and look at your side and look at my side and let's work it out.
Right. So there is a benefit to the pessimist view of trying to tear something down. I want to attack this and actually show you why it's not going to work. And through that, maybe there are some things that I say that are valid. In the engineering world, we call this build, test, fix, test, fix, test, fix. We build something, we come up with something, and then we test it to try to make it fail, and we find out what we did wrong. And this is a good process. As again, we talked about, you know, constructive criticism and constructive disagreement before. This is one of the benefits of being able to have constructive disagreement. Being able to see things uh, that you didn't notice before, and somebody who's pessimistic might be more of a critical thinker. They might take a critical thinking approach, sort of a show me approach. Um, and we talked about the high C's, saying you need to bring a lot of evidence, uh, a lot of evidence, a lot of data, a lot of facts to prove it. So making sure that you have all your ducks in a row. So yeah, there's a real benefit to the pessimistic approach as well as the optimistic approach. So let's try to develop some optimism skills here. So I want you to let's read through these following statements and verbally give a positive response to each. So the reality is my quality level is 1 percentage point below the requirement. How could we give a positive constructive response to that? This is reality.
Let's look at the numbers again because there may have been an addition error or it may have been an error in the material. So let's look at it again and see. We may have gotten it wrong when we first calculated it.
Okay. Now let's make it harder. We looked at it again, and my quality level is now 2 percentage points below the requirement.
Well, I think that we can explain why it's 2% below requirements, and we'll do whatever we can to bring that up.
Yeah, we can look to why. Why is my quality level 2 percentage points? What am I missing, and how can I improve that? So yeah,
I was going to say the same thing, that what areas of improvement can I make to raise the quality level?
mhm.
Identify some specific areas to improve.
Okay. Now the second one is a little subjective. This work environment is too fast paced. How can we put a positive spin on that?
Well, if you're able to more or less equate work environment with productivity, you can say that our office is working at a level that we're going to exceed our goals and expectations.
Okay. So the result of the pace of which you're working is higher productivity, better results. Okay. Anybody else have a different positive spin on that? I think Joe's response was too good.
Too good?
Too good. Yeah. How about this third one? We did not receive all the reference material we need to complete the project.
Find out where the bottleneck is as to why we didn't receive it and then correct it. So turn it around in a positive way to correct where the bottleneck is and eliminate the bottleneck.
Mm-hmm.
I
So
feel
this actually is a little subjective as well, because it has to do with the quality of the project. So you received reference material and you were able to achieve some level of completeness, but if you got more reference material,
we
you
do
could
better.
be even better. So how could we spin that in a positive way?
I think we have, or I feel we have pretty much all we need to get this project completed. However, if we were able to get workbook A and document D, I think that would put us over the top.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And this last one, the manager's instructions are not clear. Boy, I would eat this one up.
Well, you could ask for clarity. You could ask for clarity from your supervisor. You could also ask your colleagues and stuff. Is it something that I may have missed? Can you just clarify the instructions that the manager gave us?
Mm-hmm.
Just have like a good collaboration between your colleagues and also have a collaboration between your manager so everyone is on the same page.
So this is an opportunity for collaboration. Hey, we now can work together to come up with, our own way of doing this. And this will increase our internal collaboration and also enhance our lines of communications between the team and the manager. That's a good response. See, I would eat this up because I have high individualistic. And whenever I got unclear instructions from my boss, that gave me an opportunity to come up with my own way of doing things.
It's exactly what I was thinking.
Great. Just tell me what you want and I'll figure out the best way to do it. My manager, here's my positive spin. My manager respects that he doesn't need to tell me how to do things. My manager knows just to get out of my way and let me do it. What a smart manager I have.
And just vague references, because he knows I will understand.
Okay, are there any questions about what we just went through? Because we're actually at the end of the material, and this is going to give us an opportunity to go over. I know some of you had to leave around now. This is going to give us a little opportunity to get started on our homework. So I'm going to let you go early, but I wanted to go over the thing that I came up with last night. These are some words from the wise about emotional intelligence from Gandhi. An eye for an eye only ends up making the whole world blind. From Guy Finley, never speak out of anger, never act out of fear, never choose from impatience, but wait and peace will appear. And from Brian Tracy, confidence on the outside begins by living with integrity on the inside. Before we move on to the sort of the final project, do you have any questions for me about anything that we've covered? Anything at all?
No, it was pretty concise.
Pretty concise. Okay. Can I quote you on that?
Yes.
I just wish that
One participant said, this course was pretty concise.
I personally wish that when we go through training to become case managers,
Mhm.
that these type of classes should be mandatory, especially when we hire people whose backgrounds are such where they're not people persons, or they don't know how to conduct themselves properly in an office environment, or how to perceive others.
Mhm.
So I don't comprehend why it's not mandatory. And then also, our employers should take into consideration the results. That way they can put people in an area where they can excel, excuse me. So that would be kind of nice.
Um, I wish I had a good response to that, because our approach has been to offer these up to the entire community and let people take advantage of them. I think that um, everybody benefits, as you're saying here. Everybody benefits from uh, essential skills training, like emotional intelligence, communication skills, whatever. Um, Mandatory training then sort of takes it to another level. And where, as a consultant, I would love for organizations to come up with mandatory training and requirements. Um, there generally needs to be some sort of goal established. In other words, how are we going to measure results? If we establish mandatory training, how are we going to guarantee that what we're trying to achieve actually gets achieved? A lot of times, organizations will not want to do training for quote unquote training's sake. Um, but I
They want
think
to
that
measure.
I think that the more that you say to your organization, here are the benefits of what we did, so more people in our organization should take advantage of these when we offer them. The more these type of trainings will be offered. So I would ask you to go to your supervisor and say, look, I took this training, I got a lot out of it. Uh, the training videos are up there. We should take advantage of them. And then the next time that Sandy and Joan offer uh, this training, we should take advantage. More people from the organization should take advantage of it. So yeah, I'd be open to um, hearing ideas on better ways of us getting the word out. So one of the things that we started doing with our last training was, if you've taken training from us before, we let you know that this new training is going to be offered. So this could be a good way of spreading the word. So Yanni, the next time that we do a training, maybe next year when we offer the fall training, I will send you an email saying we're offering this. And if you send that to your supervisor and spread it around the organization, maybe more people in your organization will be willing to take the training.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not
it
sure
has-
though how it works for us because any training that we take, it has to go through the high ups at CHR. So I really don't know how they decide which training they will allow us to take. They just every now and then we'll get an email. I'll say, hey, we have training for that. Who's interested? And that's about it.
Well, how were you able to take this training?
We got an email saying that these courses were available, and we were asked to show interest if we wanted to attend. And so I said yeah, and they assigned me. But other than
Mm-hmm.
that, I honestly don't know who decides what trainings they will present to us to
Well,
attend.
well, since there was no cost involved to your organization, this was free training. I'm pretty sure all they did was pass this down because I sent it to everybody part of the WIOA, the higher level leadership, and then they sent it down to folks in their organization. So that's how you got it.
More than likely, yeah. If it's free, I'm sure.
So that's the other advantage to this. If you came to me and said, we want to do emotional intelligence for my organization, there would be a cost involved in that. And so a lot of times, organizations like yours don't have a training budget. There are some organizations that say we're going to set aside in our budget maybe $1,000 a year for each one of our employees to get training, job skills training, essential skills like we're doing today training. And then you can actually come up with these programs to where everybody's going to get 8 hours of emotional intelligence training. Everybody's going to get 4 hours of communication skills training. And that can be really effective. But what I find is that it takes somebody at the very top level to say, everybody needs to communicate better. So therefore, we're going to invest in communication skills training. Everybody needs to handle their emotions better. So we need to invest in emotional intelligence training. Everybody, all of my managers need to be better leaders. So we're going to invest in leadership skills training. And it takes a commitment. And a lot of organizations don't really think about training in that way strategically. I know I'm saying a lot here because over the years I've encountered the same type of problems that you've been relaying here. The importance of certain types of training in an organization varies from organization to organization. But I'm going to continue to send you announcements directly so that once you'll see if we do a creative thinking and innovation training workshop next year, which we probably will, you will be one of the first people to see it. And then you can sort of push it up and say, hey, can I take this training? It's free. And it's just like the emotional intelligence training that we did last year.
Sandy, you know where this would be really beneficial for?
Who?
Well, I mean, my prior profession as an educator and stuff, I mean, this would be tremendously beneficial. And working with educators in the past, they need this training. Um, yeah.
That is one area because I know that, and you bring up a good point here. Teaching is one of the professions that has designated time during the year for professional development.
Yes, they do. And they have designated time and stuff. Now, in regards to cost, I don't know how much they budget for costs and everything because I wasn't that high up. I was just an educator. But the thing is that this would be beneficial, and it just it just depends on the acceptance of the educators and the teachers if they want to accept what you're presenting them. But I know that this would be beneficial, and there are lots and lots of teachers out there that need this information that need to hear this. And it doesn't matter what state it's in, just all over. Because I worked in many counties throughout the state of Maryland, and the, well, the things that we've talked about in these different modules, I mean, I have seen, witnessed, and experienced every one of them, whether if it's good or bad on all ends of the spectrum.
Well, that's thank you for that insight. I have at one time, maybe 10 years ago, I had made some connections with Harford County Public Schools. I don't know if she's there anymore, but let me see if I can remember her name here. Anyway, um, she was the head of professional development for the teachers in the county, and I'd made contact with her and talked to her about certain things, but we didn't take it any further. Maybe it's time for me to reach out again. I don't know who she might have moved on. The person who I'm thinking, Tarbert, that was her name. Jackie Tarbert. Does that ring a bell?
I've heard it, but I couldn't tell you much about.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's who it was. But thank you. Maybe we can talk about this offline.
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely. Because I mean, I know that it could be beneficial, and not just beneficial to, well, it can be beneficial to the teachers, to the educators, also with how the community, with how administration, vice principals, principals interact with the teachers, um, how they treat the teachers, how teachers interact and treat uh, the administration. So it's a hand in hand. So it's really how everyone interacts with one another. This can be beneficial along with how the teachers, administrators interact with the students that come into the building every day.
Thank you for that insight, Matt. I appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, if you want to have a conversation like later on or something like offline,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. So, what I'm going to send you off with today is this, which is a worksheet that I sent out last night. And this is something for you to do on your own. You don't need to send this to me if you don't want. If you do, I'll be happy to look at it and go over it with you. But this, and some of you might have already done this because I'm pretty sure I did this in a prior session. One of the best tools that you can have for yourself um, in an emotional intelligence setting is having a personal vision or going through a process to develop your personal vision. So I want it, and I give you this worksheet because this is what it is. It's a process. It has you answer questions in order to help you develop your own personal vision. So the first thing that we need to do in setting our personal vision is to define our principles. And if you go to the second page of the worksheet, it asks you to pick 4 words that represent principles you value or which you most closely want to align to the way that you walk through life, and then rank them in order of importance. So there might be some words that you would choose that are on this list, and it gives you the opportunity to add some words. But all you do is you just you find number 1 here, you put number 1 beside it, number 2, number 3, and number 4. And this defines your principles. You know, this is our first step towards defining our principles. And then understanding our values. Now, since we've taken the values index, we should have a leg up on this. It'll help us come up with the things that we value. And here we have a much more expansive list of different values, the things that it can be important to us. So maybe for somebody with a high economic drive, financial security is going to be a high value. Maybe for somebody with a high altruistic drive, contribution is going to be uh, uh, one of your main values. So just pick 4 of these. Again, there's some room here to add certain values that you don't see in the list. Now you have an opportunity to think about people who've had an influence on you in your life. So write down the names of 2 people who you think have had really strong positive influences in your life. And then what are the qualities that you admire about them? And here we want you to pick at least 5 to a maximum of 10. Okay. Now we've gone through a whole segment on considering our strengths. So come up with some strengths. Go to your DISC Plus profile and look at the strengths that they talk about in there. If you don't see one that you really connect with here, feel free to add them. But pick 4 of your major strengths and talents. Now come up with some obstacles. What's standing in your way? So what are the habits and tendencies that prevent you from being the person that you want to be? What's holding you back from achieving what you want? Pick 3 of these or less. Now consider, now we're going to talk about our relationships. So consider your key relationships. And identify 4 people who you consider being very important in your work and personal life. One of them should be a boss. One should be a peer or coworker. One could be a patient, client, or subordinate, and one could be a friend or family member. So you see down below, there's a column for each one of these. And now project yourself forward in time and pick 3 characteristics that you feel each one of these people would attribute to you. So what would your boss say about you? Remember, we're talking about that 360 assessment. If you were asking your boss to give you a 360 assessment, what would they say about you? What would your peers say about you? What would your patient or client say about you? What would your friend or family say about you? And pick out how many to say 4? 3 characteristics. So you pick 3 characteristics for each. And you see this goes into the second page. So now that you've generated all this raw material, create your vision statement. So write down your principles, lead a life centered around these 4 principles. Remember that what is important in life to me are, your values. Respect admirable characteristics in others, such as the characteristics that you said you admired in others. Recognize your strengths and develop talents as a person who is. Acknowledge that I can be, and we're looking now to our weaknesses, and acknowledge that I can be, and put those 3 in here, and be constantly striving to change my weaknesses into strengths. And then envision myself becoming a person who is, and then you name the boss, the peer, the client, and the friend and then you want them to think of you this way in the future. So this is what you're striving to become. And when you're done, this is your personal vision. This is your personal vision. So do you have any questions about this? Any questions at all? You like this? You think you're going to be able to complete this?
Try.
How hard is this going to be? It's going to be
I
hard
think
for
some
you?
parts may be challenging.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be all difficult or all piece of cake, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's just a lot of reflecting on yourself as the individual.
And also it involves looking to the future. And that is something that some people have a big problem with. When you look to the future, and you think about, this is how I am now. You look to the future, and then you have to really think about, this is what I want to be in the future. This is my vision for who I want to become in the future. And looking through the eyes of others to determine what that is. This can be a very tough introspective exercise. This is something you might need to think about. And once you've developed your vision, you can compare it to where you are now, and you can now lay out a roadmap that'll get you there. So maybe had you done this before your emotional intelligence training, you might have said, I need to improve my emotional intelligence. Well, we've already done that. We've gone through this training. What other things? Maybe you decide, hey, in order to achieve this, I need more creativity training. I need to be a better creative thinker. I need to be a better problem solver. I need better communication skills. I need to manage my time better. You can think of all the things that you are going to need to do in order to achieve this vision here. And you can lay out a development pathway, a development roadmap. How many of you have an individual development plan or something like that with the organization you work for? Individual development plans are nice, but often they sort of sit on the shelf. And without going through this visioning statement, this visioning process, it's really hard to figure out the real things that you should do to develop yourself. This was a real eye-opener for me the first time I experienced this. So if there are no more questions, I'm going to cut you loose to work on this. And I encourage you to finish it. And I'm going to leave the door open for anybody who wants to go over their Disc Plus with me one-on-one, and anybody who wants to go over their vision statement for me with me one-on-one, so that maybe we can lay out that development roadmap. Again, one more call for questions.
Hey, Sandy, I'm going on vacation, but I'm going to contact you when I get back.
Okay, great.
This is
I encourage everyone to take advantage of that. Where are you going on vacation?
my cousin is coming down. He's on his way to the Outer Banks, and he's going to come and visit. He's from the northern part of Michigan, not the UP.
Uh-huh.
But we're going to go everywhere. We're going to go to Gettysburg, Fort McHenry. I think we're even going to go and look at a Corvette store in Jersey.
Wow.
Yeah. We might even go skydiving. I don't know.
Speaking of sports cars, my sister-in-law, who unfortunately lost her husband not too long ago, is now liquidating some assets. And one of the things, 2 days before he died, my brother-in-law bought a 2010 Dodge Challenger. And I think it might be in Ravens purple. So if anybody's looking for a sports car, let me know and I'll connect you with my sister-in-law. She give good deals.
Okay. I think he's for Corvette, but I'll ask him.
Yeah. Some people really love the muscle cars like the Challenger.
Well, he used to race cars, but I think he said he's done with that. So.
Well, thank you. Thank everybody for participating. And I hope you got a lot out of this. And you've got my email. And I think I put, yeah, my phone number, I'm going to put it in the chat here. So you can call me if you would like to talk about anything or to set up a meeting. I like to do Zoom meetings. So when we can't get together one-on-one, There we go. That's my phone number. You can call me. And you've got my email, so you can contact me that way as well. So you've been great. You've been a great class, great participation. Uh, Anybody who wants me to talk to their boss about this course and explain what you did and talk about how great you were in the course, let me know. And I'll be happy to put in a good word. With that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and wish everybody a great weekend. And I hope to hear from you soon.